Okay, video number 2. I don't know quite what happened to the previous one, but it stopped recording. Right, what I was about to do is show you what happens. Okay, we don't quite have exactly the same lighting conditions, but we're getting close. Not quite enough of a heat differential. But we have a smoke source, we have a heat source, and we have a heat sink which has been outside. But at the moment, the smoke is going straight up the chimney. Basically, most of the smoke is not getting sucked in by the fan. Oh yeah, there we go, we're getting a bit now. Basically, not as much air gets shifted and it doesn't go as far. And it only goes through that donut. You don't get air going right in close to the hub. Right in close to the hub, it's certainly not the fastest part. Of the air going through the disc. But at least this one has got cambered, if non-helical, blades. And camber is better than no camber. But anyway, that is what that looks like. There we go, try with slightly better lighting, perhaps. It's just really difficult to light. And this thing doesn't give me a solid stream of smoke like the helical pitched wooden plate prop does. So I think I'll just change props. Just not as much coming through. Okay, so we set up a new bit of incense. We set it up with a non-helical pitch and with no camber on the blades. And we see how long it takes for this demonstration. Okay. Right, so we've got light over the field. And with my hand, I can provide a little bit of shading. But as you can see at the moment, nothing's turning, nothing's happening. Lots of smoke though. Almost there. But basically it's not blowing the smoke as far. That's 8 inches and the smoke's not going that far. We've got plenty of heat, we've got plenty of spin, but we're just not moving much in the way of air. And what air is getting moved only moves really through the donut. Nothing much goes through the hub, nothing much goes through the tips. Because there's only one place on the entire array which is actually functioning properly. hops and farts and carries on. Anyway, that is why it's actually worth carving a helical pitch. And this one, you can see how the air going over the top of the blade doesn't actually touch it much, because it doesn't leave any residue from the incense. The underside of the blade cops all of the ash, but whereas the ash-laden air smacks into the bottom of the blade, it sort of goes up, misses the top of the blade, creates a big low pressure zone there, and that's what catches air from behind the cooling fins and sucks it through the disc. And because the disc has a varying helical pitch, yeah, the fastest moving air is the bit going past the spinner right at the bloody hub. Okay, so we're set up again. Very well worth doing, in my opinion. Even at low speed, this just works better. See how the smoke gets sucked down towards the hub, the spinner, because that's where the airflow is fastest. That, to my eye, is a much more efficient airscrew. But, you know, you can't stamp it out of sheet metal and make them 50,000 per hour. You can machine carve them out of a single piece of wood, but they won't balance properly because the bottom of a tree trunk, the wood carries more load, both weight and wind loading, than the top. So the wood at the bottom of a tree trunk is stronger, so it's denser. It's stronger because it's subjected to more stress, and it's denser because that's what happens when it gets stressed. So if you get half a dozen boards cut from the same tree, milled from the same part of the trunk, and you put them through a thicknesser and you plane them down to the same geometry, and then you measure them and you balance them on their geometric centre, and behold, what you are going to find is that each board has a heavy end and a light end. So the laminations have to be balanced before they get marked and weighed, and you have to figure out which is the heavy end and which is the light end, and you have to alternate them. And it was so long since I'd done it, and this was on such a small scale, that I didn't do it with this propeller. And that's why one blade is thicker than the other, because it's got all of the less dense ends together. That's what I was supposed to do, was weigh the bloody things before I marked them, before I drilled them, before I cut them up, before I glued them together, before I carved it. Oh, well. Obi-Wan Kenobi, we have a new smoke generator. And as for forgetting about the heavy ends and the light ends of the bits of wood, well, nowhere is it written that warbles on a lot will never make a single mistake. That is just not in the canons anywhere. But anyway, I feel like I've sort of proved my point. Sorry about the keyhole, but what do they call that? Portrait format. I'm just trying to get a better view of the verticality of the spread of the stream. Basically, once you get to this kind of RPM range and airspeed, the propeller is pretty efficient. It sucks the smoke through pretty much before the camera gets a chance to see it. It's there, but there's such a great volume of air being shifted that you don't get to see the smoke, and there's not much going up the chimney, or going up parallel to the chimney, because the low pressure zone on the upstream side is so big that it goes out there, and it's like there's an updraft beside the chimney. The updraft is sucking air in from all directions because it's so hot. The smoke is getting towards the chimney, and then it runs into the low pressure zone created by the propeller tearing around sucking the smoke, or sucking the air through the heatsink, and doing a pretty fair job of distributing the hot air through the tent, or the hut. There is one up at the tent on my daughter's stove as well. And I could subject you to the misery of having another propeller be put on there. It's a wooden one with a high lift aerofoil, which didn't work very well at all, because high lift aerofoils are good for low speed. They're not much good when the blade tips are probably moving at, I don't know, 30 to 50 miles an hour. It's just not a low speed situation. Well, this thing's doing 300 to 500 RPM, maybe 600. Yeah. Eight inches, so it's pretty close to 24 inches circumference. 600 revs a minute, 1200 feet a minute divided by 60. That's about 200 feet a minute. And 200 feet a minute divided by 1.46. Yeah, it's about 120 miles an hour tip speed. It's way too fast to be buggerising around with a high lift, fat leading edge, big, thick profile, high lift airfoil, because all it does is create a lot of drag. What you want is something that creates low drag, basically that sort of slightly luminescent area there is the light coming off the incense smoke, but it's all moving too fast to give you a definitive stream. It's only when a big thick chunk of smoke goes through that you can actually see it. Yeah, what I've done is I've recarved this aerofoil section from something approximating a Clark Y, with the flat bottom and the thickest part 1/3 the way from the leading edge to the trailing edge, to something a lot closer to a traditional Aboriginal boomerang aerofoil, which has a flat bottom and a sharp leading edge and a sharp trailing edge, and a tangential slice of a cylinder or a circumference for the top surface, with the thickest part at 50% cord. So you basically have a very sharp leading edge and a very sharp trailing edge, and it's a really low drag aerofoil. And then you get a little bit of camber, and in this application all your efficiency then comes from the pitch and the low drag. Interesting correlation between the frame rate on the camera and the LED in the light one. But anyway, that's why this little propeller carver bothers, to hand make the air screws for the Peltier effect. Thermal fan. Oh, look at that. That's actually probably the bloody angle I should have been at the whole time. I wonder how many people have stuck with the video this long to find that out. Yeah, that way the light source is in the shade of the chimney. And you can see the smoke coming up off the incense. Not much light on the smoke until it comes out from behind the chimney shadow. But with the equipment to hand, that's a pretty good visualization, I think. Yeah. boomerang aerofoil and a fully helical pitch all the way into the hub. And that's how you get a really, really nice aerofoil. And this is yet another iteration of the poor man's wind tunnel. Full magnification, you don't see much at all. And of course, when I run this through the YouTube compression algorithm during uploading, it probably won't be showing too much at all, but one may hope. Anyway, that would probably be about enough of that. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. For those of you who are watching, I suspect Ben Dixie might be one. Have a good one. Ciao. Dix Lee, I think. Got to correct it. Not good with names. Not since the fractured skull and the concussion. Ah, well, you get that. Once again, ciao.